Hello and welcome back. So before we start creating our app, the first thing we want to do is set up our environment for development. So we're going to use a starter template that I've prepared for this particular app, and this is the logistics starter.zip. So head over to patreon.com/precision programming. I'll leave the link in the description. So just go to that link. You don't have to register for Patreon or pay for anything. Just go to that link and simply click on this to download the zip file. Once you download the zip file, unzip it to wherever you want to store your projects. I'll be storing mine in this folder here called YT. So I'm just going to go ahead and extract this. I'm actually going to extract it in logistics like that. All right. So go in here and you should have this logistics starter folder. If you go into it, you have our app. So go ahead and open this. I'm just going to open it in my favorite text editor, which is Visual Studio Code. You can open it in whatever text editor you want. You should now have this starter template here that we're going to be using throughout the app. So let's go ahead and first talk about the extensions that I'm going to be using here to make things easier for me. So if I go here, the first extension I want you to install is Material Icons. So Material Icons is just cosmetics, really just makes things look nicer in your editor here. So this is the one, Material Theme Icons. That's the first one I'm using. The second one is going to be the official extension by Microsoft for Python, which is this one. And finally, I'm going to be using the Kivy extension by BattleBus, this one. So install those three, and those are all the extensions we're going to be using in Visual Studio Code. Again, if you're using something else, then you can do whatever you want. It's your text editor. You can use whatever you want. So now that we have the extensions covered, let's go ahead and talk about the folder structure here, what we have in our folder. So let's start from the top. The top contains our assets. These are fonts and the images we're going to be using throughout the app. So if you go to fonts, you'll see we have two folders. Inter is the font we're going to be using for all our text-based widgets. So text fields, buttons, stuff like that. All the text in our widget tree really is going to use the interfont. And then finally we have the feather icons. These are just icon fonts. So we'll be able to render icons in our app, and to do that we need the icons, and this is where the icons come from. So we're done with the assets folder. The components folder currently doesn't have anything, but this is where we're going to be storing all our custom widgets that we create in the lifecycle of the app. The libs folder is where we have one package, which is the icon fonts package. This is going to be the package that makes it easier for us to use icons inside Kivy, basically. We now have the pages folder as well. This one doesn't have anything yet, but the pages folder is where we're going to have all our different pages or all our different screens throughout Kivy. So this is going to be the dashboard screen, the shipment screen, the client screen. All of those are going to be in here. We then have the storage folder. The storage folder is pretty much where we handle all the data that we're going to be storing, like shipments, invoices, clients. So if you see, we have dummy data for clients, invoices, and shipments as well. And then finally, we have this handler file that pretty much helps us to get data from the CSV files. We also have this API key.json file. Now, there's going to be a time when we're going to be using the map when you want to view your shipments. So we're going to need an API key to access route data for shipments, basically route data for two locations. And when that time comes, I'm going to tell you to go and grab an API key from our website. And when you do that, you're going to put it here. That's it. That's it for the storage. The UI file is where we have the driver code for our UI, basically. So we have our view.py file, which contains our main window. So when you run the app, the window that you see, this is what is rendered. So we have the main window, and then we're just pretty much going to be putting all our different widgets inside that window to create our app. This main.kv file is where the styling for our main window is. And then init.py is the most important file we have here. So here we have our defaults for our app theme as well as our app fonts. So you see here we have our primary color, secondary color, stuff like that. So this is where we're going to be storing all our theme data for our app so that it's easier to switch later on. We also have our font sizes that we're going to be using, as well as the different fonts that we're using. So for example, in heading, subheading, as you can see, we're using the Inter font, which I already showed you in the assets folder. That's it. We also have this toggle file, which will help us to toggle between dark and light mode. Finally, we have the main.py file, which is the runner file. So before we run the app, the first thing we do is we register our icons so that we can use them to render icons in our app. So that's it for the app. The next thing we want to do here is install our requirements. So I'm just going to spin up the Python terminal here, and we're just going to do, first thing we're going to do is create an environment for our app. So do venv, and then I'm just going to create this environment outside this folder. So you can do two dots like this to not create it inside here. And then I'm just going to call it env like that. So what this does is, if you go here and then you go out, you see we have the env file now, like the environment directory. So if you check, this should have now created that environment file that we need, which is this one. All right. So now that you have the environment file, the next thing you want to do is activate this environment. So you're going to do that by simply going back to that folder, and then go to scripts and then activate like that. And this is going to activate the environment. If you're using Mac or Windows, this will be source. If you're using Mac or Linux, sorry, this will be source. And then it's going to be env bean activate. Ooh, env bean and then activate, just like that. Simple enough. Now that our environment is activated, the next thing we want to do is install the packages that we're going to be using. So you're going to do that by simply typing in python-m and then pip install. And then here you want to install Kivy, obviously. You want to install Pillow. You want to install matplotlib. You want to install NumPy. You want to install SciPy. You're also going to want to install the MapView package. All right. So once you have all of those, just hit enter to install all the packages you have. All right. So just ignore that for a second there, and this is going to install the packages that we need. Now that we have those packages installed, the next thing we want to do is, now that we have the packages installed, the next thing we want to do is store these packages so that we can reference them whenever we need to create this environment again. So to do that, you're going to do python-m, and then you're simply going to do pip freeze, and then freeze these in the requirements dot text file, just like that. And this will create a requirements to text file with all of your packages. Now that we have all of that, let's test that everything is working as expected. So to do that, all you have to do is simply type in python main.py, And then let's give this a size. I'm just going to do 1440 by 800, and this is going to default to 1440 by 800. So if you get a blank white window like this, then that means everything is working as it should. Congratulations, you can now head over to the next video where we'll start creating our app.